There's nothing I can do about that. But we do have we got a brand new setup here. Been working with the StreamYard and trying to fine tune our camera setup and stuff that we have going on here. So it should be a very entertaining little hour and 10 minutes here. The genesis for this was I was driving around and I heard an episode of Paul Harvey. And now for the rest of the story. And I was looking for a topic, and I go, wait a minute, why don't we just do rest of the stories? And so fiddled around with the title for a little bit. And then 2 weeks ago, when we were actually going to do it, what's the problem?
Which one is that?
Which one is what?
The upsize camera.
I have no idea. It's the one that's plugged into the back. Driving around and trying to think of an actual title that we could use for the thumbnail and all that stuff. Paul Harvey, the rest of the story continues, just didn't work. So I ran across issue number 15, Marvel Comics' Amazing Tales. And I went, compare kind of combine the two, and we get Greatest American Amazing Tales. You could have called it urban legends, urban rumors, stories that have never been seen, et cetera, et cetera. You could have called it all sorts of things, but I stuck with that, and that's what we're going with. And I actually have 4 stories. It's a funny story because I didn't have to go looking for one of them. I knew one. I did not know the one that Jeff Johnson blurted out on the regular radio show a couple of weeks ago. And when he did it, you're still on the hook to do it, Johnson. You can't just bail on it because some people might have heard it during the day. So, and don't tell anyone who the story is about until the end. So, so you kind of try to do it so that you tell everyone the story and then you don't tell them who it is and see if somebody can guess. So Jeff Johnson is here. Now, what were you saying? You were complaining earlier that you don't have internet, but I see you.
Yeah, no, I'm up in Maine. I have no internet, so I am on my phone. And actually, I probably have better internet on my phone than I would if I was on a computer. No, that's not true because believe it or not, where I am right now is totally off grid. I got solar panels in front of my camper here. So I'm totally off grid. When I build my house, I'll be totally off grid. But they have fiber optics running up the road, and I'll have, good Wi-Fi.
Okay, so, I mean, look, you look like you're in 4K. Maggie, I don't know what to tell you. Figure out which cable it is and plug it in.
If I do that, it unplugs that camera.
Well, then unplug one of the...
So you plugged it up to where it doesn't...
If you
to the camera, but not the A10.
I'm trying. Okay. I'm trying to figure out. So if you unplug one of, it can't be one of the white ones that is plugged. One of the white ones. We ran out of jacks because we have a new camera. You may just have to bail on that stupid camera over there and just go back to the iMac. If that's all you're going to do, because we have to have the video for everyone else. You can't just have me on there. So we'll do that. They keep building these things with fewer and fewer ports. And then if you try to get an expansion card to make it work, you basically, you can't because it limits it out because of power supply. So, thought we had more cameras, and I do have one. I actually mounted it on the wall over there. All right, back to the story. So, Johnson, you're in. Your camper is up in Maine. Resnick is back from his trip here to New Orleans. Now, you asked me earlier, and I didn't have time to answer how many stories. How many did you bring? You're muted.
All right.
Come on, Barrett.
Almost 0. The best I got is my 8-year-old only asking twice, "Are we there yet?" on the way home on a 10-hour drive. That includes traffic.
I think that indicates that there must have been some administration of narcotics. That you must have sedated him some kind of way. Because
No, he was pretty good.
usually you
No,
get...
Unless there was something in those pretzel bites, but that had peanut butter.
Nothing in the pretzel bites. Buckshot ate one, and nothing happened to him. So he was fine. All right. Well, you just have to build off of somebody else's story. Kaiser was here earlier. I don't know what happened to him. And he actually had a really nice looking Bluetooth camera set up. So
I'm still here. It's just I'm using my wife's computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's got less issues than my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem I have is that the room is not clean, and I just don't want everybody looking at the room going, wow, what a slob.
No, we would never do that.
I would.
Nobody looks at the background. We're not judgmental people. I can tell you from the early going here that 14 chatters. Are we allowed to count how many chatters there are on YouTube? Because that might get you to 20 today. I said 30 was the minimum number. Joe Beeman is back. So Kaiser, you'll have to tell your story or your stories audio. Joe Beeman is back. I don't hear any children tonight. Well, I don't hear you.
Oh, she's right here beside me.
Oh,
She was waving at Mr. Mike because every time you're on the YouTube, she waves at Mr. Mike in the morning. So when she saw you? She was all excited.
Okay, I was going to say I used to be like a widescreen, big screen star in your house every morning.
You still are.
Oh, okay, all right.
On the 55-inch TV every morning.
55.
Yeah,
Beeman, you're still stuck at 55?
Listen, that thing's like 10 years old and still going. We're going to keep it going until
I mean, TKD is worth at least 85 inches.
Yeah, I mean, come on, dude.
He's a 110 guy,
Upgrade.
to be honest with you.
Upgrade. You got stories? Please tell me you have stories.
The greatest story I have is it's 2026 and my wife has yet to kill me. So I think that's a pretty amazing story.
That might be the winner right there.
That could carry.
I can tell you almost times my wife has killed me. I got all kind of wife stories that she would have killed me for.
Okay, you're supposed to have like a fantastical flourish and an end to it. It's not supposed to be personal. You're avoiding danger, and you are the person that's in the Scream movie. That's not supposed to be. That's running from the guy with the mask. Or maybe you could turn it around and you could be the guy in the mask in the Scream movie. But it's not that kind of a story. Steve Smart, maybe Steve Smart will bail me out here. He's got his dude number shirt on too, so you do. And I can't believe you didn't take 2121.
No, it's 2112.
2112. You did.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, 2112. 2112. All right.
Jackie actually.
You know what?
Jackie actually ordered it.
Okay, is there a story behind why they chose 2112? Ooh.
People should know that, I would think.
There has to be a story behind why that band chose 2112.
Oh gosh, that I don't remember. I know I've heard it before, but it's been a long time.
All right. Well, you guys.
It's part of what's in the album. It has something to do with that album.
Okay.
Is it
I don't know.
something like the ABBA thing, or like SOS ABBA, forward backwards?
I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it to me.
Doesn't ABBA actually stand for the names? It's Bjorn,
Yes.
Benny, it's Antoinette, Bjorn, Benny, and I can never remember the other ones.
Agnetha.
What's
Agnetha.
Agnetha?
The blonde was Agnetha.
Agnetha.
Yep.
I can harmonize her.
Yes,
Oh,
very much.
Yeah.
I do have a story for you though.
Okay, well, I have 4, so it's a good thing that I could have done more. I just thought, well, I don't want to hog up all the time. Kaiser, you actually said you wanted to do this tonight, so I hope you have a story. And who is in slot number 7?
The old farmer.
That would be me.
Oh, I know he has stories.
No, you caught me off guard with this one. I probably got stories, but they're not quite what you want.
I don't have a bar. There's no flaming hoop of fire that you have.
You do too have a bar. I saw it on the table when I was down there.
Okay, that's a different kind of bar. Yes, and I do have a bar.
Okay.
So I guess then I can start. So around the turn of the last century, around the 1900s, people started playing around with after the discovery of radioactive isotopes. And people started playing around with the rocks that they were using to actually get the isotopes. And one of the rocks that was discovered by Marie and Pierre Curie had more than one radioactive element in it. But it took them like 5 years to isolate it. They couldn't figure out how they knew that because they were throwing off a different radiological signal, but they couldn't figure out how to actually isolate the thing. So the first one that they isolated was called polonium. Now, they thought they just had a regular old uranium rock. Anyone ever seen uranium? You know, uranium actually occurs it's actually inside of other mineral formations. So they had what they thought was a regular old uranium rock, and then Pierre says, no, there's more than just one element in here. So they kept messing around with it, and then they discovered polonium. And then after they discovered polonium, then a year or two later, they discovered radium. And then they were able to separate it and put them into different elemental batches, if you will, put them into different containers. And after they figured out how to separate it, then the scientific community started messing around with it to see if the radioactive materials had any uses. And they found out that if you took this radium stuff and you mixed it with iodine salt and you put it on a skin cancer wound, the skin cancer wound would go away. And they're like, it's a miracle. So they thought that they had discovered the fountain of youth in radium. And so they started putting radium in everything. They put it in toothpaste. They put it in colas. They put it in soaps. Now, they were putting very, very small amounts. Thank the Lord, or they would have killed, how much, heaven knows how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of people. So they kept experimenting with it. Then a guy whose name was Hammer said, I wonder if it has any other purpose. And so he took some radium and he mixed it with a combination of glue, which came from horse hooves at the time, horse hoof glue, and some other liquid, which I can't recall, and then radium. And what he found out is that the radium starts to bond with the other electrons in certain compounds, and that's what makes it glow. So if you have anything that glows green in the dark, it's probably painted with radium. And they figured out, and Hammer figured out that you could make stuff glow by just mixing a small amount of radium with these other compounds. And then he invented glow-in-the-dark paint. And then he added something else to it to make it so it would dry, almost like an enamel. And so they started using it as a glow-in-the-dark paint. And they used it for really cool things like to paint the hands on a watch, the numbers on a watch. So at nighttime, you could see on your radium watch, you could see the numbers. And this came in very handy in this little thing that we got dragged into called World War I. And during World War I, the GIs all had pocket watches. Some of them had wristwatches, but the main thing that they had was a pocket watch. Well, if you're on guard duty or whatever, you're supposed to do something at night, you can't shine a light because you get shot. So how are you going to see your watch? Radium. So they started a factory in New Jersey, and they started hiring women, and they put them at these ginormous long tables, and they gave them little cans, little containers of radium, and an 8-inch. I forget the name of the brush company, paintbrush, like an artist paintbrush that has a fine point on it. And what they would do is they would sit there with their little monocle glasses and they would dip their paintbrush in, and in the little cutout that had been indented into the watch face, they would fill it with radium and paint it. Then they found out that if you dipped your brush, if you did this to your brush, and made a point on it, and then dipped into the radium, you could go 3 times as fast. because you have a pointed brush and you didn't have to have as much attention to detail. Your hands could shake a little bit. You could still fill the slot. And so many of the women, there were 4,000 of them that were working at this factory, started doing this. Painting the watch. Dip, paint, dip, paint. Well, it only took about a year before one of the women started noticing that her teeth were getting loose. Then another woman noticed that her teeth were getting loose. And then another woman noticed that her teeth were getting loose. Then another one noticed that she started complaining that she was getting sore and that her entire jaw was getting sore. Fast forward to another 6 months or so, and these women had lost all their teeth. The skin that was covering their jaw was basically eroding away, exposing the bone. When they were examined, pieces of the bone would fall off, and ultimately they lost their jaws. There's another bad thing about radium. If you ingest radium, your body identifies and goes like, oh, calcium, I'm going to put you in a bone. So it stores the radium in bones all over your body. Fast forward another year or so, and there are hundreds of these women who have died. Tens of or thousands of them are now sick, and it leads to an investigation. And this is actually basically at the end of this, at the end of the story goes that the government of the state of New Jersey had to create an agency to make workplace safety rules. This is basically where your OSHA gets started, is because of radium. And there have been dozens of books written about these gals. One of them is still alive. Well, she was alive in 2010 when they made the documentary. An interesting little factoid about them, and I'll tell you what their nickname is in just a minute. And there's books written about them, and you can get all kind of videos to tell you the story. If you go to one of these women's graves today and you bring a Geiger counter, it'll still click. That's how much radium they ingested. And so it was a scandal. The women had to sue, and it was the Radium Company of America. They were putting radium in everything. People were eating radium. There were lawsuits, and finally, the Radium Company of America, obviously, it tries to silence the women, and it tries to paint them as just the reason their teeth are falling out is because they got bad hygiene habits in their hose and what have you. Ultimately, after 3 separate lawsuits, the women who were infected with the radium with the radium brushes are victorious, and they win lots of money, but none of them live to ever spend it, so they have to give it to their heirs. And then the American Radium Company goes out of business, and then there are all manner of workplace rules now that come into existence, and this is kind of like where the beginning of the regulatory state begins. Because people are like, well, there was nobody there to test it. Well, because no one ever thought that something could be that poisonous and that somebody would be stupid enough to actually do it. Well, they didn't know. So at the end of the story, they are called the Radium Girls. And there's been a movie made about the Radium Girls. There's a recent book that came out about the Radium Girls. You can watch documentaries about the Radium Girls. There's all manner of folklore. As a matter of fact, Maggie, I'm going to cut out of the full screen. You never showed them. Okay, I'm going to cut out of the full screen. I just want to show everyone. This is the Radium Girl statue. You know what? Hang on. You'd think that I had done this before. You really would. You know what? You're going to have to show it. I can't do it.
Of what? Just tell me what you need.
The Radium Girl statue. Can I just send you the link because
I can find it. Just go back.
I actually have I have all these tabs. I have 16 tabs open with the book and with the statue and with all the other stuff in it. There's something wrong with this new Macintosh of mine because
While you're doing that, Mike, may I add something real quick?
Please do.
My grandmother worked at that factory,
Did she really?
and for a very short time, she did do dial painting, and she ended up getting into. They did some assembly as well, so she did not spend much time licking the radium. So she didn't become a radium girl, and she did live to be 93 or 94. But she met my grandfather there because they were doing something assembling with the glass and the lenses, and she got a piece of hot glass that flew up and got in her eye, and ran over where he was working with yelling hot glass, and he got it out of her eye, and that's how they met.
So if you're looking at your screen on YouTube, that is a picture, because people like him, pictures of a statue in Ontario of one of the Radium Girls. So she was actually a dial painter.
For a very short time, she said, yeah, and then she, days, weeks, and then she got into another area of the factory. But yeah, she actually worked at that factory.
And there have been several books that are written. There's a very recent one. It is called, and I had it pulled up earlier. Of course, I had it pulled up earlier. It's called The Radium Girls, and it is written by. I'm sorry, I had all of this done. It's written by Kate Moore. 15, the Radium Girls tells the story of more than 24 women who made their living painting luminous watch faces. The dark story of America's shining women. And it was also said, Dan and everyone else, that the ones that had dipped their brushes the most, because the radium would get into the calcium in their bones, that at nighttime, the people would say that they could actually see a slight greenish glow through their clothing. That's how strong the radium was. So the Radium Girls is one of those. Now, the rest of the story. And I just thought, because until I started looking for this today, I never heard it. Anybody else ever heard about the Radium Girls?
Not until today. It's a
Rhett?
very interesting story, though.
Rhett?
I just happened to watch a documentary about it. I guess it was probably 6 months ago. And for some reason, my YouTube feed was feeding me all sorts of horrible things that went wrong with the early days of radioactive material. So people tried it. They thought it was a miracle. Like you said earlier, people thought it was a miracle cure. So they consumed it. They put it on their skin. They did everything with it. And then parts started falling off, and they couldn't figure out why.
Then parts started falling off.
The jaw is a reoccurring theme with all these experimentations, and many of them were self-induced, and it's just freaky.
You got to realize they didn't learn that much, though, miniature, because in the 50s, it was very short-lived, but they actually had a game toy you could buy. It was called Atomic Lab, and it had real uranium in it that kids could play with.
Little Johnny nukes the backyard.
Well, it wasn't until Iran became the Islamic Republic and Donald Trump said in 1987 they can't have a nuke that people really started paying attention to radiological material. That's when it really kicked in. We'd probably still be eating radium today had it not been for the Iranians. So, I guess we can all send thank you cards to the Iranians for putting radiological material back on the map. All right. Who else has a rest of the story or an amazing tale? An amazing tale would be, does anyone know that there's a reason why you look at somebody and go like, you joshing me?
I got that one.
Who has it?
Kaiser, I have that one.
Okay. There is a reason why you say, you joshing me? It's a real story. Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, mine is, I've called it Lone Survivor. And no, it's not Marcus Luttrell. But mine is set in World War II. My guy was a TBD Devastator pilot. Each Devastator had a 3-man crew, a pilot, a radio operator, and a rear gunner. And he was in Torpedo Squadron 8, and I'm sure that most of the panel already know who this is now. And off the Enterprise, and his squadron arrived at the Japanese fleet alone before any fighter cover got there, and they made their runs on the Japanese fleet, and the entire squadron was shot down, and he was the lone survivor out of that entire squadron. And he was in the ocean for 30 hours watching the attack on the Japanese fleet, and he witnessed the three of the four aircraft carriers being sunk. And so after 30 hours, PBY Catalina came back along, saved him, and took him back to the fleet. And he actually, I believe he reported to Nimitz and reported actually witnessing the three Japanese carriers being sunk, and he could give eyewitness account that they were definitely sunk. So I'm sure that someone in our esteemed group here knows the name of that pilot.
Not me.
Ensign George Gay, Texas A&M class of 1938. I actually had the honor of meeting Mr. Gay in 1991 when he spoke on campus.
Wow.
Yep. So, and so Ensign Gay got the Navy Cross, the second highest heroic award, just below the Congressional Medal of Honor.
That is, I had heard the story, but I could not remember the name. There were several soul survivor stories. Isn't Gay's? Didn't Spielberg use like at least part of the story of Saving Private Ryan? I know that, and don't say it. I know that Saving Private Ryan is linked to another story. As a matter of fact, I actually have it, so I actually know the story. But there were several like soul survivors in World War II battles. Some of them land battles where they weren't supposed to make it, and they actually didn't live to tell the story. So they had eyewitnesses to the account. All right, hold that thought, because we're going to take our first little time out here. It's a quick one. It is 3 minutes and 43 seconds. When we come back, I'm going to play you an audio file when we come back, and then I'm going to tell you the rest of the story on Thursday Night Throwdown.
It's not tape or a Post-it or a candy bar, but this new 3M
is the freshest spin on true crime shows since dinosaurs were solving cold cases with fossil evidence. Yeah, it's that original, folks.
Mom's Murders and Mysteries. New episodes debut every Tuesday night, 6:30 East, 4 West, exclusively on the Crusade Channel. Live talk podcast radio, the way it should be.
The Crusade Channel and the Slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary's Sisters present the Saint of the Day.
Hello, Crusaders. This is Sister Mary Joseph with your Saint of the Day. Today is May 7th, the feast of Saint Stanislaus of Krakow, who died in 1079. Saint Stanislaus was a saintly Polish archbishop. Because of his courage in teaching the unequivocal Catholic faith, he drew on himself the anger of King Boleslas II, who one day entered a church where St. Stanislaus was celebrating Mass and split his head open with a sword. St. Stanislaus of Krakow was only 49 years old when this happened, and Dom Guéranger relates the following. After the death of his parents, Stanislaus wished to embrace the monastic life, and therefore distributed his large fortune among the poor. But divine providence willing otherwise, he was made a canon and preacher of the cathedral at Krakow by Bishop Lampert, whose successor he afterwards became. In the duties thus imposed upon him, he shone in every pastoral virtue, especially in that of charity to the poor. Today is also the feast of Blessed Marie Louise, 1759. She was born at Poitiers, France, and was one of the spiritual daughters of Saint Louis-Marie de Montfort, the first to adopt his consecration of slavery to Our Lady. With him, Blessed Marie Louise co-founded the Daughters of Wisdom to relieve the suffering of the poor and to run charitable schools and hospitals. The poor people would call her the Good Mother Jesus. She founded 36 religious houses in France before she died at the age of 74. Blessed Marie Louise, Saint Stanislaus of Krakow, pray for us. Thank you for joining us for this brief summary of the lives of today's saints. Tomorrow is the apparition of Saint Michael the Archangel. To access all of our Saint of the Day recordings as podcasts, head to crusadechannel.com/saints. To learn more about our sisters and to contribute to the building of our convent, go to stphilomenaconvent.org. I'm Sister Mary Joseph, and until next time, may God bless and Mary keep you.
Some of the best things on earth come in threes.
That's right, Lee. There's the Three Stooges.
And then there's the Cajun cooking trinity of onions, bell peppers, and celery.
And of course, guys, there's the Holy Trinity.
Now, I'm not comparing my Trinity to the Holy Trinity, but I guarantee you, my Trinity of homemade small batch rubs can put a heavenly smile on your taste buds. And all three come with my 100% money back guarantee. If you don't love and think that my Trinity of beast and butt rub, chicken mamu, and Acadiana steak seasoning aren't the best and most essential spices in your arsenal, I'll buy them back from you.
It may not be holy, King Dude, but that's the best spice and rub deal on this side of heaven.
Order Mike Church's set of Trinity rubs and save big at mikechurch.com/rub. That's one bottle each of beast and butt rub, chicken mamu lemon herb seasoning, and Acadiana steak seasoning for one low price and the King Dude's money back guarantee. Order today at mikechurch.com/rub.
Turn around, look at what you see in her face, the mirror of your dream. Make believe I'm everywhere, getting in the light. Written on the pages is the answer to a never-ending story.
Hey, welcome back to the Thursday Night Throwdown. Greatest American Amazing Tales. That's why I'm playing the Amazing Stories song, you might have guessed. Okay, so we covered the Radium Girls. We covered the story of the lone survivor. And I thought then I would play a clip from a movie I might have had a little something to do with. And since no one ever listens to any of the bonus features on any of my CDs or DVDs, I'm in no danger of any of you guys knowing this, because you won't. But there was a story in 1776, in December of 1776, that Washington's army, as it was crossing the Delaware River for the surprise sneak attack on the Hessians at Trenton, that there were three crossings that night. This is why this is a great story. There were three crossings that night. First crossing was Washington's, and that was upriver from Trenton, from Pennsylvania, or from Maryland into Pennsylvania, or from Pennsylvania into New Jersey. The second one was Nathaniel Greene, who was further up the Delaware River. And the third one was Liam Cadwallader. And Cadwallader and Greene... Greene never got across. Cadwallader didn't get across until early the next morning. He was like 8 hours delayed. So Washington's army was the only one that got over. So they were supposed to converge on Trenton in 3 points. And Washington had figured that he thought there was between 1,000 and 1,500 Hessians and some other British regulars that were there. And the goal of the mission was they were just going to surround it. They were going to get a very small skirmish, and they were going to take all these guys as POWs. And they were basically going to send a message to Cornwallis that we're going to apply guerrilla tactics in this war, and you're not going to know where we're coming from, because we're not going to march in a line across the battlefield so you can shoot us all, and we just all fall down like a little sack of cards. So that was really the purpose of the Christmas Day raid of Washington's crossing of the Delaware River into Trenton, to New Jersey, and to take Trenton back from the Hessians. And the evil-hated Kneifhausen, who was the commander of the Hessians. What you don't know is that Colonel Donop, who was as easily as wicked and as notorious for being a killer in battle as Kniphausen was. Because Kniphausen was famous for having killed hundreds upon hundreds of colonials in Washington's army and militiamen. Colonel von Donop was also supposed to be at Trenton on Christmas Day. And he had sent word to Kniphausen that, hey, man, do you think you really need me? And Kniphausen said, yeah, I don't think I need you. I think we'll be okay. So stupid Americans, and I'm speaking in a very poor Prussian accent. So Kniphausen told him, no, you can just come on Christmas Day. You just come sometime during the day after you and your men have your Christmas breakfast or whatever. And so Donop stayed in a town called Mount Holly. Bordentown, actually, Mount Holly, which was right up the river. What you don't know about the story is that the reason that Donop stayed was because of a girl, a woman, whose identity was revealed in 2012, shortly before the release of my movie, The Times That Try Men's Souls. And here's the account. Their way over it and nearly escape. Keep in mind that a mere 6 miles down the river is Bordentown, and one Count Donop, a Hessian commander, is supposed to be there to offer reinforcements in case of an attack on Trenton or Burlington. But where is he? Remember earlier I said the outcome of this battle depends on Betsy Ross?
Betsy Ross? As an American flag maker female heroine Betsy Ross?
That's the one. You see, Count Donop was a ladies' man, and he was 8,000 miles from his ladies. Donop and his men had chased Colonel Griffin, who was on a mission to lead the Hessians from Bordentown toward a town called Mount Holly. Well, Griffin's men had done their job, and on the 23rd, they passed through Mount Holly with Donop in hot pursuit. The militia hightailed it to a nearby hill, charged up it, and stopped. Donop, upon reaching Mount Holly, stopped and decided to stay the night. There he met and was invited into the home of an exceedingly beautiful young widow. Donop was supposed to return to Bordentown on Christmas Eve, then again on Christmas Day. But so enthralled was he with the beautiful young widow that he didn't move until word of the attack on Trenton arrived. But he was 16 miles away and of no use to roll. Had Donop been at Bordentown with Cadwallader's Crossing a failure, Donop would have been able to reinforce Rawl, surround the town of Trenton, and end the war with the capture of Washington and his army. So, who was the widow who saved the revolution? Some have speculated that Betsy Ross fit all the criteria, that Washington had clued her into his plan after she offered her ladylike services to him. Now, there's no evidence to support this. However, in 2012, a pair of New Jersey researchers, Dennis Rizzo and Alicia Michalkis, set out to determine who the mysterious widow of Mount Holly was. After an exhaustive review of every public and private record available, they pieced together the evidence and revealed that a woman named Mary Magdalene Vallot Bancroft was the widow of Mount Holly. Again, Washington's fortune is smiled upon by a... So, I actually had the document. Her name is literally Mary Magdalene Vallot Bancroft. Subsequent research since McShalkus and Rizzo did this back in 2012. Subsequent research has basically borne this out. And now Dan Mundy, your Garden State Historical Society, now says that Rizzo and McShalkus discovered who the widow of Mount Holly was. And so they have named her. It's interesting that how she became a widow. I won't tell the story. But
They all sucked radium, so I don't know if we can trust this.
This is long before the radium scams. So that's another one of those stories, an amazing tale. And that, after the fact, Washington was asked about this, and he actually said that he would have lost. He said that we would have lost that day. We would have been surrounded, and then Colonel Rawl would have called for Cornwallis, and Cornwallis would have had the sword of George Washington, and it's over. Now, I don't know that it would have been over because Lee, the scoundrel Lee, who wanted Washington's command, was shacking up with hoes about 50 miles away in New York. So he may have made a play to go and take over, but Washington had 1,200 men with him, and it would have been.
Lee was also in Bernardsville, New Jersey, too. So.
Sure was. That's right.
And that's where they caught him.
Yeah, that's when they caught him with what? 2 hookers. When he opened his door, there were women inside.
Well, he was indulgent.
So that is that is another one of these amazing tales, and maybe the Revolutionary War might have been lost had Washington been captured that night, had it not been for the widow of Mount Holly. I was always fascinated by when I was a kid, because I heard the story when I was a little children's, that it was Betsy Ross. You want to think that it's Betsy Ross, but it wasn't Betsy Ross. All right, who's next? Who's got a story? All right, Kaiser, you have to have one. I heard you had one.
Yeah, I have one. So as a kid, I was one of those really cool kids that collected coins. And one of the stories that you hear collecting coins, there are certain coins that are kind of unique, kind of have a story behind them. One of those coins was the original design for the 1883 nickel, the Liberty Head nickel.
Yep.
So the story goes, a deaf mute in Boston realized that there was a striking resemblance in both size and design between the $5 gold piece of the time and the new 5-cent nickel. And one of the things that was missing on the nickel that the men had done previously, they had a 3-cent piece that was a 3-cent nickel. They didn't include the word cents on it. All they had were the Roman numerals for the, denomination and supposed value.
Okay.
Well, this guy decided he was going to scavenge up some of the new nickels, and he took them to a pawnbroker or jeweler. The story it's a little bit of a convoluted story, and there's a certain amount of urban legend to the story. Although the fact is that somebody really did do this, and it really did cause major problems for the mint. But he took the story goes, he took the nickels that he had them electroplated, which at that time was a kind of obscure technology that not too many people knew, not too many people could pull off. And he would then go to unsuspecting shopkeepers and give them his gold-plated nickel as payment for items less than $5, would then collect the change and then move on. And so the story goes that this guy did this in the Boston area, moved down into the New York area, did the same thing in the New York area, and was eventually caught. And so at that point in time, they brought him up on charges. He went to court. His attorney, the story goes, knowing that he was a deaf mute, could not have engaged in fraud by actually telling people, where's my change or things of that nature. It was the store clerks who basically assumed it was a legitimate $5 gold piece who would give him the change, which is where he was making his money. And as a result, he was acquitted. After his acquittal, the mint, who had been informed that this was a problem, went back and redesigned the coin so that it had 5 cents on it, so that wouldn't be a mistake that was made again. Congress actually changed the law, or actually added laws making it illegal to alter, deface, defame, or otherwise use legal currency in a manner other than, as a as a form of legal tender. So anybody that's got one of those gold piece necklaces that their grandma had, or silver dollar necklaces, technically you're breaking federal law because you're not supposed to be able to do that either. And the story goes, the guy's name was Josh Tatum, and the term "Are you joshing me?" Is supposedly attributed to this particular guy and his felonious endeavors that he got off on. And I guess I would add one other thing.
I thought you were going to tell me that he got off, that his last name was Scott, and he got off scot-free.
Scot-free. That would have been a better story if he was Josh Scott. That would have been
Josh
perfect.
Scott. You get Josh in and scot-free out of it.
Right. I would like to add one thing to your story on Lee getting captured with two hookers. He probably didn't know they were hookers. He probably thought he was just doing really well.
He thought that. I thought I was just doing really well with you. I got it. I got that joke. That's a great story. That is Are you joshing me? That's fantastic.
Yeah. So actually, if you go out, you can still. They call those. There are still a bunch of those nickels that they're collector's items now. They refer to them as racketeer nickels, and you can find them for sale at auction from time to time. They're actually pretty cool.
Amazing.
But,
all right, who's next? Steve Smart. Thursday Night Throwdown, amazing, greatest American amazing tales.
Okay. So this American tale actually starts in Germany, back probably in the late 1800s. And there was a glass painter. He painted on glass, and a lot. He was commissioned a lot by churches, so he did a lot of paintings for churches. And he became very much known for a particular kind of red paint that he had developed, and no one knew how he developed it, so no one could reproduce it, and that kind of helped him become popular in his paintings. I'm sorry? Yeah, it looks like velvet. Is basically what it looks like, that red on the glass like that. And so as time went on, his family had some of the paintings, but a lot of them, were in churches and stuff in Germany. And when World War I and World War II, somewhere around in there, they were trying to protect them, so they took them out of the churches and they buried them. And then after the war, they found them and dug them up and then put them, back in some of the churches and stuff. The problem was, after World War II, was that most of the family lived in West Germany, and the churches that where the paintings were in East Germany, so they couldn't get to them. And whenever the wall fell, they had some of the small paintings, and they wanted to go look for the other ones. So the priests and the people that had put them back in the churches, they didn't really know the history and the story. They didn't really know who painted the paintings. That had been lost. And so when the family went over there after the wall fell to try to find them, they took some of the small ones with them, and they had to use the ones they had and compare that red to kind of prove that this was their family member that had done these paintings. And then today, there's still one in, well, there's some in the there's a chapel in a graveyard chapel on a church property where there's some that are hanging, and they've made, they've reproductions. They've done Christmas cards and stuff out of them, and there's some photographs. I actually have a copy of one of the photographs here. I don't know how well y'all can see.
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, and you see that?
Yep.
Red. Okay. And then one actually is in the Holy Sepulchre.
Oh.
A small one, what I understand. What makes this an American tale is that this man's his name was Karl Hahnemann. His great-great-granddaughter is currently an American living in America. Any guesses?
Melania Trump.
No, I can give you a hint. It'll probably give it away.
Give a hint. Yeah, give a hint. Well, first of all, does anyone have a clue? They're all going, no, I got nothing.
It's an obscure story. No one would really know, except
never
that
paid
this
attention.
young lady is actually one of our Crusaders.
Okay. Sherman.
That
Harris.
narrows it down. There's not that many of us.
Yeah, that would make it the investigation a little easier.
Jacqueline Smart.
Who got it? Who was that?
That was me, Jeff.
I was about to guess
Jeff.
that.
Very good, Jeff.
So
Yes, sir.
So
my wife is the descendant of this painter.
what was the red called?
Did you just say your wife was a banker?
Oh, I wish.
No, you don't.
No, I don't. I have no idea. Now, Jackie's mom might know, but actually, her uncle, who still lives in Germany, would probably be the best one to. Yeah, this Christmas card came from Jackie's uncle, and it's all written in German. I don't know. You probably can't read it or see. Well,
Now I can see it.
But yeah. So, and then that's the same. The card's made out of that same picture.
Yeah, when you're painting stained glass, you don't want to know how they get the yellow pigment.
Yeah.
No, it's a true story. Mike
Probably
Mike Parrott told it at the last Congress. It's it's actually true. All right, Thursday Night Throwdown, greatest American amazing tales. All right, Joe Beeman, you've been nodding all night. Do you have an attendee, or do you have a story?
I'm a great attendee. Listen to the great stories. I've always loved storytellers and love listening to great stories. I mean, that's what gets your minds working and getting. Honestly, listening to my grandparents tell stories is what I got into history. I mean, most of this stuff that we're talking about are unknown stories become, part of our American fabric that makes us who we are. So, I mean, I don't have any great ones, unfortunately, Mike. Sorry.
I got one for you, Mike, if you want it.
Well, let's hear it.
Farmer.
All right. Now,
Mr. Mundy, does it start with why'd the chicken cross the road?
and we know why that answer is, right? Or it's like, well, who came first, the chicken or the egg? It was the rooster, but that's a different story.
Yes.
This actually I comes from an anthology series. We'll see if anybody can guess the name of the series. And I liked it very much. A lot of it got off into some weird paranormal things, but this was an actual documented story. In 1960 in Chile, there was a tremendous earthquake. It was like 9.5, and it sent a tsunami that hit Hawaii. And there was a couple there. One guy was a construction engineer, and his wife, I forget his name. Her name was Margaret North, and his name was Mr. North. And he went off that day to the other side of the island, and she was a quadriplegic or a paraplegic, and she was in a wheelchair. So the sirens are going off, and people are evacuating, and she wasn't able to get hold of him or get hold of anybody to come help her. And she was trapped in this house, knowing that the sirens went off. I mean, she didn't know, but the sirens are going off. In the meantime, there was a retired Navy officer who was so deaf, he was going to meet some Navy buddies for a lunch, and he was so deaf he could not hear the sirens. But he got lost, and he's traveling around trying to find where he needs to go. So he doesn't know there's a tsunami siren. She knows it is, and she can't get anywhere. And he actually drives by her house and hears her, however you want to determine that he does, and goes in and rescues her. And at the end of this particular show that dramatized this, the actual Margaret North came on and told the story and said, yeah, this is true. He saved my life. So I don't know if anybody knows the series. I can give you a hint, but
yes, hints.
All right. Well, came on about a year before the Twilight Zone.
The Outer Limits.
No, that was a couple years after, or a couple years during the Twilight Zone. See, it was sponsored by Aluminum Corporation of America. Does that help?
Alcoa.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's who sponsored the show. All right. It was hosted by John Newland.
No clue.
Come on, Dan.
One Step Beyond.
Never heard of it.
You never watched One Step Beyond. Oh,
It came out in the 50s. I wasn't even a thought.
Yeah, but as we talked about when I was down there, you guys got all your prescription streaming things when there's all these great things to watch that was actually made years ago. No, it was an anthology. It was like 3 years it ran, and it did stories like this. And some of them were, ghostly and paranormal and all, but they had a couple of really good ones. And that was an actual documented show that this woman is, she's crying for help. This guy's so deaf he can't hear a siren. And somehow he gets out of his car and stumbles over to a house and finds her trying to get out of the house flat in the front yard.
Is there somebody that's semi-famous? That's the woman or the guy?
No,
Just a story. All right, well, I got one. Thank you very much. Thank you. I never heard that. What's the name of the show again?
One Step Beyond. John.
One Step Beyond.
They brought it back like they brought Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, in the 80s or whatever, tried to revive it and did a year or two of it. But no, not like the original one.
Okay, well, here.
I have a story for you, and I think I've told you one-on-one at my house about the birth of me. Do you remember that story? Mother Mary? Sister Mary? Or maybe we were too drunk and you don't really remember.
No, I remember part of the story. No, I do.
All right. So I am one that doesn't believe in coincidence. I believe that your life and the Lord guides you in directions that you need to go, right? So we can all probably agree on that. So 1977, month of November, the year I was born, my mother and father, very young, have a young man. So mom goes into labor, rushes her down from Appalachia all the way down to this little hospital in Cumberland, Maryland, called Sacred Heart Hospital. Ran by a band of sisters. But by the 70s, it was pretty much winding down where there was only a handful of sisters there, even though it was still funded by the diocese and how the money comes in. So mom goes in. She's having a pretty tough labor. I was number 2. And here comes this very young, beautiful sister, and her name was Sister Mary. So she's there, 12 hours in this labor. She's there the whole time. And I'm born. So they come out, doctor spanked me on the butt. And, sister asked if she could hold me, and she did. And she blessed me, and she handed me back to her mother. And she looked at my mom and said, hey, this young man here is going to be a handful. You're going to have to roar him with an iron fist, she said. But he'll be a good man, and he'll do some good things. So age 6, I'm back in the little town of Lonacone. If you can look that one up and find it on a map, it'll be a miracle. Soon after that, my mother, I should say, I moved back up a bit. Mom takes me down and has me baptized at the local church. So out of all of her children, I'm the only one that she ever has. So age 6, I'm outside playing baseball with the teenage boy next door. He gets mad, takes the baseball bat, and smashes me in the head as hard as he can. So I'm laying there on the ground. One of the neighbors sees it, runs over and gets my parents. My parents load me in the car because the ambulance won't show up. They couldn't get an ambulance there. It's too far away in the middle of nowhere. And they take me back to this hospital. And when my mom comes in, they'll push me in on the stretcher the whole 9 yards. I come in, and they have me in there, and all the doctors there. And within minutes, here comes Sister Mary. She shows up. So, I'm not doing good. The doctors come out, the sister's praying with mom, remembers the date of my birth, remembers me when I was born. And I started out with, he's not going to make it. He's going to die. And then hours later, he's, if he survives, he's going to be bedridden. And it went through the whole process. He'll be a vegetable. He'll be this. He'll be that. 4 days into this, I did surgery, took me out, said, yeah, he's just going to be a vegetable. 2 days after that, out walks little Joey, perfectly fine. Run all these tests on me. Have no idea how I survived. But during the process, the whole time I was there, and the first 4 days, Sister Mary sat in the hospital in my room and sat there and prayed every single day for me and did not leave the room, other than they would bring her some water, a little bit to eat, but she just stayed there. And finally, one day after the surgery, she got up and walked to my mom and woke her up and told her, hey, your son's going to be fine. And 2 days later, there I was walking out of the hospital. Nothing wrong, everything working right, mind working right. So mom goes home. About 2 weeks later, my parents were extremely poor. So my mother wanted to go back to the hospital to thank, Sister Mary for being there and praying. And so she went out and picked a big old bundle of wildflowers because it's all they could afford to do, and took it back to the hospital and walked around the hospital, asked where the offices was for the sisters, and a couple of people pointed her in the right direction. She went down there and she asked, meet Miss Sister Mary, to get a gift, and nobody at the hospital said, "Ma'am, there's only 5 sisters here, and we're all in our mid to late 50s or older. There is no Sister Mary here. Like, I'd love to bring her to you, but there's not here." Her mom's like, "Well, she was in the hospital. She was in her room. Like, I've talked to her. She was here when my son was born." Long story short, she walked out with the same flowers and went home. I was like, "Well, this is odd." And every time that I showed up to the hospital after that, Sister Mary would always be there. And I was always at the hospital for stitches or something. But to this day, Sister Mary, my mom would go to the grave telling this story that she was there and that nobody at that hospital knew who she was. So there you go. Here's a coincidence. Only one of her children that has ever been. Mom has 6 children. She was Irish Catholic. I'm the only one she's ever baptized. None of my other sisters have ever baptized. And here's this journey that, I've shared openly and with your loving help, Mike and Candace and all the people in the crusade, that now my whole family is Catholic. And I don't believe in coincidence. I just believe it's a process we have to go there. And I believe the reason I am here is because of Sister Mary. Now, Brother Andre says she's my
guardian angel.
My guardian angel. But to this day, I'm alive. There's no reason I survived that night. My father and mother both told me that my brain swelled so bad that they could see it protruding out of my skull.
So, brother said guardian angel. I was leaning Marian apparition. So, that's an amazing story. And it's true.
It is 100% true. And I even asked my mom years later because it took a long time for me to even find the hospital because, like, most people don't know, my mom has onset dementia. So it took a long while to even be able to figure out to be able to go find my actual baptized record because she had no copies of it. And I asked her before she got sick a few times to tell the story. She's told it. The most recent was about 1.5 years ago because I tried to ask Mom, like, why was I the only one out of your 6 children that you baptized? Why would you not baptize all of them? And she has no answer other than it was the right thing to do. And I did it. So
no coincidences.
It does explain the shape of your head, though, Joe.
Oh, Monday, it's just the challenge throwdown flag. Great story.
Love you too, buddy.
Great story, Joe. That's fantastic. So, folks, you heard an original one that you haven't heard anywhere else. You got to write that one down in a book. All right, I'm going to close this up. I got one for you. We're gonna end on this one. On April 21st, 2016, the entire world was shocked by the death of a famous musician. His music was the soundtrack of much of the 1980s, early 90s, and even into the 2000s. He had a reputation as a person who ate a lot of healthy food, maintained a trim and slim physique, and was just overall just like a healthy dude. But after his death, stories started to emerge of the physical pain that he endured because he was such a workaholic. It was known that in his private studio at his home, he was always writing and recording songs. And some of the people that knew him said, oh, yeah, he probably had 7,000, 8,000 unreleased songs. So he dies. After his death, his estate realized that he was keeping the songs in a vault because he was paranoid. Well, guess what? He forgot to leave the combination to the vault, and it was locked. So, he himself had forgotten the combination, but during the examination of the estate, somebody that was doing the examination and the accounting, the inventory, closed the door, and they couldn't get it back open. So, and nobody expected him to die because he was moderately young. Since his death was unexpected, a problem was not seen, no one saw it coming, and the estate then goes, well, what are we going to do? And this was like a really expensive safe vault door. So they found this dude whose name was Dave McOmie, a professional safecracker based in Oregon. And they asked him if hey, man, do you think, you came to us, you're like a movie star, a safecracker. Do you think you can crack it? And he said, I'll try. He was familiar with the model of the safe, the Mosler American Century, and he informed the state that he would attempt to break into the safe, although no burglar had ever defeated a Mosler American Century safe, not even once. McComey knew that this job would be a challenge. The safe was 6.5 feet tall and weighed 6,000 pounds. He got to work. He used a common technique called micro drilling. To drill small holes through the vault's door at precise locations to view the combination's lock from the inside using a periscope. By viewing the combination lock, he could detect the correct code to unlock the door. However, an error on his part could trigger the safe's built-in security system known as a mousetrap relocker. If triggered, the relocker would fire a spring-loaded mechanism that would permanently lock the door, even if a person had the correct combination. Well, McComey was able to successfully open the safe door, and the people in attendance embarrassed him by clapping when he completed the seemingly impossible feat. And yes, inside were 16-track tapes that contained over 8,000 unreleased songs that they're still going through. Can you guess the artist? Not you, Maggie. Did you Google it?
No, I know the documentary. I've seen it.
Oh, you've seen it. Anybody?
Prince.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Prince, Rogers Nelson. I didn't know that. So, yeah, they got the tapes out, and they're going through them, and they're finding all these songs that the dude was just like nonstop recording songs on the greatest American famous or amazing tales. So we'll wrap it up with that one. I'll tell you another one that I had, and it involved the famous brothers who all, Kaiser's going to know this one, who all died when the battleship or the naval cruiser, the SS Juno, was sank in 1943. Oh, Kaiser doesn't know this one?
It's the Sullivans.
Yes.
Sullivan brothers.
Yes, it's the Sullivan brothers. Kaiser, did you know that this is a complete and total urban legend. There is no Sullivan Act. There's no Sullivan.
I didn't know that. I knew that there was nothing like that.
Nothing.
During World War II. The closest that they had to that is that they would, if you had multiple people, they would try to send them into different theaters of combat. Because my grandfather and his three brothers all went to, well, two of his brothers went to the Pacific. He went to the Atlantic Theater, and then he had another brother that ended up being a POW guard in the U.S. for Italian POWs.
Ironically,
I can tell you that is absolutely correct, because me and my stepbrother stood in the same battalion in the same city at the same time.
there is a rule, though. It's basically called what Kaiser called in his story about Mr. Gay. It's not called the lone survivor. It's called the sole survivor rule. This is what Spielberg based Saving Private Ryan on, and it is a rule. If there's three brothers or three family members, and two of them are KIAs, and they know it, and they know where the third one is, you get him out. He's the sole survivor. So the service does have an actual policy, but it doesn't say they can't be in the same place or near the same place at the same time.
That's really weird. It's one thing to be in the same theater, but all three of them on the same ship?
Yeah.
That sounds like a snafu.
Yeah, me and my brother was in the same battalion. Like, we was at the same place, and they figured it out because there was the battalion commander was walking down, introducing and shaking everybody's hand, and he got to me and saw my name placker on my uniform and said, "Hey, there's another Beeman over there." And I said, "Yeah, that's my
Get off of my ship!"
And he's like, "You two in my office afterwards." So the only reason we was able to stay is that first of all, he wasn't birth brother, so my father adopted him and gave him the last name, and so that was the loophole that they could use because it wasn't blood.
And anybody know the name of the movie they made, 1944? They were quick to get a biopic out.
The Fighting Sullivans.
The Fighting Sullivans. And the urban legend has been there ever since. They changed the policy. You can't. No, they didn't. There was never a policy. All right, we're going to wrap up this episode here of Thursday Night Throwdown. I want to thank all of you guys, Jeff Johnson, Scott Resnick, Dan Mundy, Joe Beeman, Steve Smart, and he just goes by Kaiser. Kaiser for attending tonight. We had a full house in here. Great stories. Got a personal story out of Joe. That's going to be one for the record, one for the history books there. And some other great stories and some other great trivia. Look, there was no end. I had literally 50 of them. I had lists everywhere. They were just going down, you're doing that one, not doing that one. I actually had two more that I was going to introduce, but I'd have to go a little quicker. So we'll do this again sometime. We'll do another America's Greatest Amazing Tale story on Thursday Night Throwdown. Get all the other episodes on YouTube. You know, the show's actually got in, it's more popular on Rumble than it is on YouTube. It's got thousands of views on Rumble, almost no views on YouTube. And maybe it's because Rumble has more people looking for entertainment and games and stuff like that. And we put it under the entertainment tab. We'll see you tomorrow for a Free Phone Friday. Carolyn Rocco, Joe Beam, you're going to want to make sure you listen to this, or you're going to want to hear this or see this show. Carolyn Rocco, there's a new documentary coming out called Duty to Disobey, and it's all about the 100,000 plus men and women in the United States Armed Forces that refused the jab. And they were either dishonorably discharged or discharged, took early retirement. And of course, Trump did an executive order and tried to make some of it right. Well, Carolyn Rocco is going to tell you the whole story of how it actually happened and how illegal it was, and that people ought to be buried underneath jails for what they did. And you'll hear it all tomorrow on the Mike Church Show in the 8 a.m. hour. We're reviewing movies tomorrow. We're doing Cold Storage, Maggie's favorite horror comedy flick. Cold Storage, Liam Neeson. The one
It was so bad. Oh, no.
F1 with Brad Pitt, and then the internships so it'll be the three films that we'll be reviewing tomorrow. So a big day on a Free Phone Friday. We'll see you tomorrow bright and early for that. And until then, I was trying to think out. You know what? I'm just going to go back to the never-ending story. Till then, God bless you and Mary keep you.